The signal's echo. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the International Space Station, her eyes fixed on the strange readings flooding her holographic display. The signal had appeared 3 days ago, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm that defied conventional analysis. Unlike anything Earth's sensors had detected before, it wasn't just a message, it was a warning. "Dr. Rodriguez, what do you make of this pattern?" She called out to the station's lead xenolinguist. The older man adjusted his glasses, dark eyes scanning the complex wave formations dancing across his screen. "It's beautiful," he murmured, "and terrifying." The message repeats in over 300 different linguistic patterns. Someone wanted to make absolutely sure it would be understood by any species capable of detecting it. The warning was elegant in its simplicity. Stay away. What lay beyond the Carina Nebula was not meant to be discovered. Every species that received the signal was expected to acknowledge and retreat. And according to their long-range sensors, many had done exactly that. Sarah watched as another alien vessel, the 5th they'd detected this week, altered course away from the forbidden sector. The ship's energy signature indicated it was far more advanced than anything humanity had developed. Yet they turned back without hesitation. "They're afraid," Sarah realized aloud. "Every species that's received this warning has chosen to heed it. Every species except us," Rodriguez finished, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Humanity has never been particularly good at following instructions meant to hold us back." In the 3 months since Earth's governments had united to address the signal, the debate had raged. Many argued for caution, for respecting the boundary that other civilizations clearly took seriously. But in the end, humanity's insatiable curiosity won out. The Horizon Project was born, a mission not to retreat, but to advance, to push past the warning and discover what lay behind it. Sarah had been selected to lead the expedition, along with an international crew of the brightest minds Earth had to offer. Their ship, the ESS Prometheus, was nearly complete. Built in secret using revolutionary propulsion technology, it represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a vessel designed to take them further than any human had gone before. "Final system check is complete, Captain," Lieutenant James Morrison reported from his station. The young engineer's fingers flew across his console with practiced precision. "All systems are showing green. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Sarah nodded, her decision already made. Humanity had come too far to turn back now. The warning might have been meant to protect, but it had instead ignited something fundamental to the human spirit: the desire to know, to understand, to push beyond established boundaries. "Send word to Mission Control," she ordered. "The Prometheus launches in 48 hours. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity isn't content to simply accept limitations. We need to understand them." As the crew began their final preparations, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what they would find beyond the warning. Other species saw only danger, but she saw possibility. Whatever waited in the darkness beyond the Carina Nebula, humanity would face it not with fear, but with determination and curiosity. The signal continued its endless broadcast, a symphony of warning and prohibition. But for the first time since it began its vigil, a species had chosen to question rather than retreat. Humanity was about to make its mark on the galaxy, for better or worse. And Sarah Chen would lead them into the unknown, carrying the hopes and dreams of her entire species. The signal had meant to stop them, but instead, it had given humanity its greatest challenge yet. The countdown to launch had begun. Breaking the barrier, the ESS Prometheus cut through the void of space like a blade of hope through darkness. 3 weeks into their journey, the ship's quantum engines hummed with a steady rhythm that had become familiar to the crew. But as they approached the edge of the Carina Nebula, that rhythm began to change. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations ahead," Lieutenant Morrison reported, his voice tense. The ship's sensors were picking up something massive, a barrier of pure energy stretching across their path like an invisible wall. Sarah Chen stood from her command chair. studying the holographic display before her. The barrier wasn't natural. Its perfect geometric pattern spoke of artificial design. This was what had kept other species away, a testament to technological prowess far beyond their current understanding. Dr. Rodriguez, what can you tell us about the structure? She asked, watching as the xenolinguist analyzed the readings pouring in from their advanced sensors. It's magnificent, he breathed, eyes wide with wonder. The barrier appears to be a network of interlocking energy fields, each operating on a different quantum frequency. It's not just a wall, it's a test. The crew watched as pulses of energy rippled across the barrier's surface, creating patterns that seemed almost alive. Their sensors detected debris from other ships, those that had tried to force their way through and failed. The other species, Sarah realized, they didn't just turn back because of the warning. They tried to break through and couldn't. She turned to her chief science officer, Dr. Helen Nash. What options do we have? Dr. Nash, a brilliant physicist with a reputation for unconventional thinking, had been unusually quiet since they detected the barrier. Now she stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. The barrier operates on multiple frequencies simultaneously, she explained, pulling up a complex diagram on the main screen. But look here, there's a pattern to the fluctuations. It's like a lock with multiple tumblers. If we can match the resonance frequencies exactly, we could slip through between pulses, Morrison finished, catching on to her train of thought. But the timing would have to be perfect. A fraction of a second off, and we'd be torn apart like the others. Sarah considered their options. The safe choice would be to turn back, to admit that the barrier was beyond their capability to overcome. But that wasn't why they'd come this far. Dr. Nash, how long would you need to calculate the precise frequencies? Sarah asked. With the ship's quantum computer, maybe 48 hours. But Captain, even if we get the calculations right, we'd need a way to generate the exact counter frequencies. Our engines weren't designed for that kind of precise modulation. That's when Lieutenant Morrison spoke up again, his eyes lighting up with an idea. What if we didn't need to generate new frequencies? What if we could use the barrier's own energy against itself? The young engineer quickly outlined his plan. By reconfiguring their shield emitters to act as resonance amplifiers, they could capture and redirect the barrier's energy patterns. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and exactly the kind of innovative thinking that had driven human progress for millennia. It's never been attempted, Dr. Nash warned. We'd be pushing our technology far beyond its tested limits. Sarah smiled. That's what humans do best. Begin the calculations, Dr. Nash. Morrison, start working on those shield modifications. We've got 48 hours to make the impossible possible. The next 2 days were a blur of activity. The crew worked in shifts, pushing themselves to their limits as they prepared for their one chance at breaking through. They knew they would only get one attempt. Either they would succeed, or they would join the debris field of those who had failed before them. As the final hours counted down, Sarah gathered her crew for one last briefing. What we're about to attempt has never been done before. Every other species that encountered this barrier chose to retreat. But humanity has always been different. We don't accept limitations, we overcome them. The crew took their positions, each person focused on their role in the complex operation they were about to attempt. The barrier loomed before them, its energy patterns now familiar after hours of study. All modifications are complete, Morrison reported. Shield resonance amplifiers are online. Frequency calculations are locked in, Dr. Nash added. We'll have a window of exactly 3.7 seconds when the patterns align. Sarah took a deep breath, her hand steady on the command console. Everything they'd worked for came down to this moment. Take us in. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do. The Prometheus surged forward, its modified shields beginning to pulse in rhythm with the barrier. Energy crackled around the ship as the two frequencies met and merged. For a moment, it seemed as though the ship would be torn apart by the competing forces. Then something remarkable happened. Where the ship's amplified energy met the barrier, a hole began to form. a temporary weakness in the seemingly impenetrable wall. The Prometheus pushed forward, riding the wave of its own modified energy field. For 3.7 seconds, the universe held its breath. Then, with a final surge of power, the ship broke through. They had done the impossible. Where others had failed or fled, humanity had found a way. As the barrier shimmered and sealed behind them, the crew of the Prometheus found themselves in unknown space, facing whatever mysteries had been deemed too dangerous for the galaxy to know. But they had proven something vital, that human ingenuity and determination could overcome any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it might seem. Sarah Chen looked at her crew, pride evident in her expression. Well done, everyone. Now, let's see what secrets were worth hiding behind that barrier. The Prometheus pressed on into the unknown, carrying with it humanity's unquenchable spirit of exploration and discovery. They had broken through the first barrier, but something told Sarah that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The forbidden knowledge. The space beyond the barrier was unlike anything the crew of the Prometheus had ever encountered. Massive structures floated in the void, their surfaces etched with patterns that seemed to shift and change as the ship passed by. These weren't ruins. They were active, alive with energy that their sensors could barely comprehend. "Are you seeing this?" Dr. Nash whispered, her instruments struggling to make sense of the readings. These structures, they're drawing power from subspace itself. The energy output is beyond anything we've ever recorded. Captain Chen watched as holographic displays filled with data from their surroundings. Each structure seemed to serve a different purpose, yet they were all connected, working in perfect harmony. This wasn't just a restricted zone. It was a vast machine complex. "Dr. Rodriguez, any progress on decoding the symbols?" Sarah asked, noting how the xenolinguist had barely moved from his station since they'd arrived. "They're incredible," he responded, his voice filled with awe. "This isn't just one language. It's a universal syntax, a way of communicating complex ideas that transcends individual species limitations. The more I study it, the more it seems to make sense." A sudden alert from Lieutenant Morrison's station drew everyone's attention. "Captain, we're picking up an energy signature ahead. Something's activating." The massive structure before them began to transform, panels shifting and realigning themselves. A docking port materialized, perfectly sized for their ship. It wasn't just an invitation. It was an acknowledgement. They knew we were coming, Sarah realized. Or at least they knew someone would eventually make it through. The decision to dock was unanimous. They hadn't come this far to turn back now. As the Prometheus settled into the docking port, the crew prepared for their first expedition into the structure. The airlock cycled, and Sarah led the first team inside. The interior was bathed in a soft, ambient light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The corridors responded to their presence, illuminating their path forward. "This technology," Dr. Nash muttered as she scanned their surroundings. "It's not just advanced. It's perfect. There's no waste, no inefficiency. Every atom seems to serve a purpose." They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, and that's when they saw it. A massive holographic display activated, filling the room with images that told a story. The story of why this place had been hidden. "It's a library," Dr. Rodriguez breathed, his eyes wide as he began to translate the symbols. "No, it's more than that. It's the key to understanding the fundamental forces of the universe itself." The images showed civilizations rising and falling, species discovering this knowledge and using it in different ways. Some achieved wonders, ascending to new levels of existence. Others destroyed themselves, unable to handle the power they'd discovered. This is why the warning was sent. Sarah understood now. This knowledge, it's like giving fusion technology to a species that's barely mastered fire. The potential for advancement is enormous, but so is the risk. Dr. Nash was already analyzing the technical data being presented. "This is incredible. They found a way to manipulate the quantum fabric of reality itself. With this technology, You could reshape planets, create or destroy matter at will, even alter the flow of time. But look here, Morrison pointed to another section of the display. These civilizations, the ones that destroyed themselves, they tried to use the technology before they were ready, before they understood the consequences. The room seemed to respond to their discussion, shifting the display to show more detailed information. It wasn't just testing them. It was teaching them, gauging their reactions and understanding. That's why other species turned back, Sarah realized. The warning wasn't just about the barrier. It was about responsibility. The power to reshape reality itself. Most species chose to avoid the temptation entirely. But humanity had chosen a different path. They hadn't turned back at the warning, hadn't accepted that some knowledge was too dangerous. They'd pressed forward, driven by an unquenchable desire to understand. "Captain," Dr. Rodriguez called out, his voice urgent. "There's more. According to this, we're not the first species to make it this far, but we are the first to do it this quickly." Most species that develop the capability to break through the barrier took thousands more years of technological advancement. Sarah felt the weight of that revelation. Humanity's rapid technological progress, their ability to innovate and adapt, had brought them here centuries, or even millennia before they might have been ready by the standards of whoever built this place. So what do we do? Morrison asked the question they were all thinking. Do we take this knowledge back to Earth? Can humanity handle it? Sarah studied the displays, watching the rise and fall of civilizations play out before them. The power to reshape reality itself. It was everything humanity had ever dreamed of, but with it came the responsibility to use it wisely. "We don't make this decision alone," she declared finally. "This isn't just about our crew or even our species. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with first." As if in response to her words, new images appeared in the holographic display. A challenge, or perhaps an invitation. The true test was about to begin, and humanity's response would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of the entire galaxy. The crew of the Prometheus stood in that ancient chamber, surrounded by knowledge that could elevate or destroy civilizations, and prepared themselves for what would come next. They had found what lay behind the warning, but understanding it, and proving they were worthy of it, would be their greatest challenge yet. The Guardian's challenge. The holographic chamber transformed around them, the walls seeming to dissolve into an infinite expanse of stars. A new presence filled the room, not physical, but undeniably real. The ancient AI Guardian had awakened. "You have come seeking knowledge." The voice resonated in their minds, somehow speaking in a way all could understand. "But knowledge without wisdom brings only destruction. You must be tested." Captain Sarah Chen stepped forward, her voice steady despite the overwhelming presence before them. "We're ready. Humanity has never shied away from a challenge." "So we have observed," the Guardian responded. "Your species breaks barriers that others respect. You question boundaries others accept. This makes you either the most worthy to receive our knowledge or the most dangerous to possess it." The chamber shifted again, and the crew found themselves surrounded by 3 distinct challenges. Each one, the Guardian explained, would test a different aspect of their worthiness. The first challenge materialized before them. A complex quantum puzzle that showed a star system on the brink of collapse. "Save them," the Guardian commanded, "but know that every action has consequences beyond the immediate." Dr. Nash took the lead, her fingers dancing across holographic controls as she analyzed the problem. The solution seemed simple at first: use the provided quantum technology to stabilize the dying star. But as she worked, she noticed something more. "Wait," she called out. "The star's death, it's not random. Its collapse would trigger a specific resonance in nearby systems, preventing a larger catastrophe in the future. If we save it, we condemn millions more to death in the future." Sarah finished, understanding dawning. The test isn't about whether we can save them. It's about whether we understand when we shouldn't. The Guardian's approval was palpable as they stepped back, choosing not to intervene. Sometimes the hardest wisdom was knowing when not to use power, even when you had it. The second challenge emerged, a simulation of first contact with a primitive species. The Guardian provided them with advanced technology and a simple question: how do you guide them? Dr. Rodriguez studied the simulation carefully, watching the species struggle with basic technological concepts. We could give them everything, he mused. Show them how to overcome their limitations immediately. But that's not real growth, Lieutenant Morrison argued. Look at human history. Our greatest achievements came from overcoming challenges ourselves. Our mistakes taught us as much as our successes. Together, they developed a plan, not to give the species technology, but to subtly guide them toward asking the right questions, to help them discover rather than be given answers. The Guardian's approval manifested as a subtle shift in the energy around them. The final challenge was the most difficult. The chamber filled with images of Earth, showing multiple possible futures. In some, humanity had achieved wonders. In others, they had destroyed themselves. Choose, the Guardian commanded. Which future will you make real? The crew stared at the possibilities before them, understanding the weight of the choice. But Sarah saw something the others hadn't yet noticed. These futures, they're all too perfect, she said. Even the disasters are too clean, too certain. Real life isn't like that. The future isn't something you choose from a menu of options. It's something you build, decision by decision, day by day. She turned to face the Guardian directly. We choose none of these futures. We choose to forge our own path, to face our challenges as they come, and to learn from both our triumphs and our failures. That's what makes us human. The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the Guardian's presence seemed to change, becoming less overwhelming, more approving. For 100,000 years, we have tested species who reached this place. The Guardian revealed. Most chose safety over knowledge. Of those who proceeded, most sought perfect futures or ultimate power. You are the first to reject the very premise of the test itself. The holographic displays shifted, showing new information. The true history of the facility and its creators. Our makers believed that only a species that could think beyond the obvious, that could see past simple choices to understand deeper truths, would be ready for what we protect. Sarah felt her crew's pride and determination as the Guardian continued. You have not proven you are worthy of this knowledge. You have proven you understand what worthiness truly means. That is a far greater achievement. The chamber began to fill with new information. Not just the quantum technology they had initially discovered, but the wisdom accumulated over eons about how to use it responsibly. This wasn't just about advanced science anymore. It was about the philosophy and ethics that had to accompany such power. You will face one final challenge, the Guardian announced. But it is not one we can test here. You must decide how to share this knowledge with your species, how to help humanity grow into its potential without losing what makes it unique. The crew of the Prometheus stood together, understanding that their real challenge was just beginning. They had proven themselves worthy not just of knowledge, but of the responsibility that came with it. Now they had to prove they could handle that responsibility not just as individuals, but as representatives of their entire species. Humanity's promise. 3 months after their encounter with the Guardian, the ESS Prometheus approached Earth's orbit. The crew stood at their stations, each lost in thought about how their discovery would change everything. The knowledge they carried wasn't just technology. It was a responsibility that would reshape human civilization forever. Multiple ships approaching. Lieutenant Morrison reported, his voice steady. Looks like the welcome committee has arrived. Through the view screen, they watched as vessels from every major Earth nation surrounded them. The world had been watching, waiting, wondering what they would find beyond the barrier that had turned away so many other species. Open a channel, Captain Sarah Chen commanded. To all vessels. She took a moment to gather her thoughts before speaking. The words she was about to say would set the course for humanity's future. This is Captain Chen of the ESS Prometheus. What we found beyond the barrier was not just advanced technology. We found a choice that every spacefaring race eventually faces. Most species chose to turn away. They chose safety over understanding, security over growth. But that's not who we are. The Guardian's final message played in her mind as she continued. Unlike other species that had made it this far, humanity had shown something unique, not just the courage to face challenges, but the wisdom to understand why they needed to be faced. The knowledge we've brought back isn't a weapon or a shortcut to power. It's an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to prove that humanity is ready for its next great leap forward. Dr. Nash stepped forward, adding her voice to the transmission. The quantum technology we've discovered could reshape reality itself. But more importantly, we've learned how to implement it responsibly, step by step, in a way that allows our understanding to grow alongside our capabilities. We're transmitting our first proposal now, Dr. Rodriguez continued. Not the complete knowledge, we're not ready for that yet, but a roadmap, a path forward that will let us develop this technology together, as a species, learning and growing as we go. The plan they had developed was comprehensive. Unlike other species that had either rejected the knowledge entirely or tried to seize it all at once, humanity would take a different approach. They would create a global initiative, combining the best minds from every nation to study and implement the technology gradually. The Guardian showed us possible futures, Sarah explained to the listening world. But we chose to make our own. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us human. We don't just accept destiny. We shape it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Nations that had been rivals for centuries began reaching out to each other, recognizing that this discovery was bigger than any earthly divisions. The human drive to explore, to understand, to push boundaries, it had brought them to this moment. In the months that followed, something remarkable happened. The knowledge from beyond the barrier didn't divide humanity. It united them. Research centers were established across the globe, each focusing on different aspects of the technology. But more importantly, they focused on understanding its implications, its responsibilities, and its potential for both good and harm. The Guardian had been right. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their intelligence. It was their ability to learn, to adapt, and to face challenges head-on while understanding the consequences of their actions. Other species began to notice. The civilizations that had turned away from the barrier watched in amazement as humanity not only survived their discovery, but thrived with it. Slowly, cautiously, they began to reach out. A year after their return, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the new International Space Academy, watching as ships from a dozen alien species docked at the station. They had come not to warn or to fear, but to learn. Humanity had proven something extraordinary. That knowledge wasn't just about power, but about the wisdom to use it right. Did we make the right choice? Morrison asked, joining her at the window. Taking on this responsibility. Sarah smiled, watching as human and alien scientists worked together below, sharing knowledge and understanding. We made the human choice. We faced the unknown, accepted the challenge, and found a way forward that no one else had considered. That's what we do best. The quantum technology was advancing, but not as a weapon or a tool of power. Instead, it was developing as part of humanity's natural growth, integrated with their existing knowledge, and tempered by their hard-won wisdom. The Guardian's final words echoed in Sarah's mind. You have shown us something new. That readiness for knowledge isn't about achieving perfection, but about understanding imperfection. About facing challenges not because you're certain of success, but because you're willing to risk failure to grow. As she watched Earth below, its nations working together in unprecedented cooperation, Sarah understood what they had really discovered beyond the barrier. Not just advanced technology or ancient wisdom, but a truth about humanity itself. That their greatest strength wasn't in their ability to overcome obstacles, but in their willingness to face them together. The warning that had turned away so many other species had instead become humanity's greatest opportunity. They had proven not just their courage or their intelligence, but their capacity to grow, to learn, and to face the future not with fear, but with determination and hope. The stars beckoned, holding new mysteries and challenges, but humanity was ready. They had made their promise to the Guardian, to themselves, and to the future, not to be perfect, but to never stop trying, never stop learning, and never stop pushing forward into the unknown. And in that promise lay humanity's true strength and their ultimate destiny among the stars.